Hi folks, we're Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about an interesting statistic here about the primary places all around the world where allegedly rape against women is levels unseen. It's off the charts. There's so much rape going on, and the primary source of mass migration to the West. Now, it just turns out that every place in the world that is a hotbed, I say, of rape against women and violence against women are the main source of migrants. And from these places, the 90% plus of the migrants are men. So what we've got is a situation here where the largest group of rapist lawbreakers in the world are being imported into the West, and this is considered to be a good thing. Diversity is our strength. What do they mean? That we can introduce more crime and more rape or something? I don't know. It seems to be a bit of a confused. So, and you'll even see places like the United Nations or the major politically active NGOs will have these huge campaigns about how bad rape is and increasing awareness in these places, and at the same time say that these rapists should be brought over to the West. Now, if we look at migration, a lot of places there was I was talking to a former operative in one of the embassies in one of these third world countries, and these. In this particular country, we're having a good chat. He was talking about that when they want to get rid of certain people, because the West is so open to taking non-white folks in, when they want to get rid of a certain class of people, group of people, it could be their political agitators, it could be they're part of a criminal gang or so, anything, it doesn't matter. When they want to get rid of a class of people, they go, look, here's the deal. We'll put you in prison for 25 years each, or we'll have assassination squads chasing you, or you can go and migrate to the West, America or Canada or wherever, England, it doesn't matter. But you have to leave the country. Here's your choice. What do you want to do? And so these people go, shit, I'll go. And here's the NGO contacts you'll need. They'll arrange all your transport and all your food and clothing, they'll arrange it. They'll take care of everything, and they'll get you over there. So, and when you get to the other side, there's all sorts of criminal gangs will employ you, so they can get rid of large numbers of unwanted people this way. And this is quite widespread. It's a bit like the Cubans emptying out the prisons and sending them all off to the United States. This is the same sort of gig, and it's happening all over. So the class of people that are coming to the West, not every single one of them, the class of people that are coming to the West are often these folks that are being expelled for some sort of activism or indeed criminal activity. They're not building many new prisons in these places, and the prisons get pretty crowded. So they're more than happy to expel their worst criminal inmates to another country, to the West. Now, just looking at the stats, though, for supposed or alleged rape, and remember the rape sort of thing is so caught up in propaganda and lies and exaggerations that you really can't believe any of it. And if you look at, say, a place like a third world country, here's one third world. I'm just looking over here. This third world country where they supposedly have demonstrations in the street, and about rape. So this is women against rape, and they've got all these signs. Now, it's all paid for by the NGOs and by the United Nations. There's nothing grassroots about it at all. It's a choreographed, stage-managed piece of theatre that's supposedly going to draw attention to an important issue. Now, this is a country where babies by the thousands are starving to death. This is a country where dead bodies just litter the streets. People just drop down dead, and it can take days for the authorities, to whatever extent they may exist, There can be brutal repression authorities, but not authorities to help run a smooth, well-functioning society. That's always the case with these sort of places. So all these dead bodies, dying children, starving people, sewage that doesn't exist, no electricity, and yet you've got women on the streets about rape. There's lawlessness of every type that's off the charts, but the United Nations choose to have a group of women supposedly organically and grassroots doing a protest, and the media, international media, happen to be there to take going. This is all bullshit. They've got many pressing problems in a totally dysfunctional, failed state society, and yet this is what they're nonetheless. The top rape areas of the world are the main source of migrants. So effectively, the United Nations saying, let's take as many law-breaking criminals as we can find in the world and send them to the West, and everything will be sorted out. It will. Now, if you look at how crime's exploded all over the West, there's much through lax policing and activist prosecutors, all this sort of thing. And the only, say in Britain, the only people that are held to a legal standard in terms of behaviour are the local white people. Everyone else gets varying degrees a free pass. Now, on the matter of just coming to the matter of rape, the propaganda machine in the West asserts rape is only ever committed by white people or white men. Now, to the feminists and the activist feminists, nearly all of whom appear to be lesbians, to their way of thinking, the absolute front line of gender power relations and gender power structures is intimate sexual relations, because he penetrates her, therefore it is a power dynamic that gives him power and yet takes it away from her. This is in their hysterical, insane cognizance. So rape is something that is cherished to them. It is the front line of gender power wars, and so they have to invest heavily in it. And it's a battle they want to win. But they're not concerned about the black migrant coming to the illegal or otherwise coming to the West, because they're a sort of minority group, and so it's a little bit uncertain. And usually when those guys commit a rape, it's a slam dunk. The evidence is just everywhere. It's never a case, or hardly ever a case, of he said, she said. So they have that's pretty easy to put them in prison if you want to. And they usually cut a plea deal and say, look, it's 10 years if you want to fight us on this, but look, we'll put you in prison for 3 years if you, particularly if they're raping another black woman or brown woman, then it's there's almost a who cares attitude. But the prize, the cherished scalp that these activists in the rape industry, the rape grievance industry want is straight white middle class men. They are the scalps they want, because it's not a case of actual rape where there's violence, like he pulls a gun or ties her up, or nothing like that. Threat of violence. It's nothing like that. It's a straight consenting transaction. But according to the activist, it's not really consenting, because the evil white patriarchy has convinced her to submit to him, which means it's still a power, an imbalance of power. So even though she consented, she kind of didn't really, because she's been conditioned to accept his power. So really, it's still kind of ideological rape, and so that this is the one they want. So they see it through these insane ideological terms. And so they still want to go after the straight white guys. But the wider issue here is that the rape industry is like any of these other victim industries and victims grievance industries and the professionally offended and all this sort of stuff. And it all goes into that wider pot where they see it's an ideological sort of war that's being, as they would see it, being waged, rather than two consenting adults agreeing to have intimate relations. That they can't conceive of that. That can't exist as far as they're concerned, unless there are two lesbians or two black lesbians. Then they think it's, in social power terms, equality, therefore it is consenting, but not otherwise. But they're bringing over millions of people to the West, or agreeing to and condoning and part of the wider activist machine that promotes it. all these people to the West that believe that rape, is certainly as defined in the West, is quite okay and quite acceptable and just the normal state of affairs. But the sad, if I think, very sad thing about it is that if these people who condone this assume that if the black man rapes a black woman, it's kind of not that big a deal. A bit like they see it in Chicago. As long as black people are shooting each other, then it doesn't matter. 100 black people can shoot each other, but if one white person shoots a black guy, then fuck, international headlines, because they see it through this lens of social power. So I think we're importing a class of, have imported, are continuing to import into the West a class of lawbreakers, whether it's they flagrantly abuse public assembly laws, or it's rape, or it's election rigging, or it's all manner of fraud, that we're importing this class into the West and continue to do it, which will, if continued, and if the same laws are not applied to them, will bring about the ultimate destruction of the Western societies. And I'll just close with this, that the West has typically been, on a relative basis, a very high trust society. Going around to doing all the business traveling I've done, I was amazed at how low trust other societies are in comparison to the West, or say Australia. And there are various tribal and class, and there are nuanced issues around it, but race and tribalism are the biggest. And the West was had the highest relative in terms, but the highest trust in the world. And I was, wherever I'd go, Eastern Europe or the old Soviet bloc in East Europe, this sort of thing, it struck me how low trust these people were, even though they're supposed to have had decades of this equality paradise. Their trust of each other was zero. And yet they've had 50, 60, 70, 80 years or whatever of this paradise, this equality paradise, and yet people don't trust each other at all. And this sort of struck me as being rather odd, because these people are supposed to be living in this paradise of equality, yet there's zero social trust, whereas the rapacious, evil, profiteering, exploitative capitalist system, where trust is on a relative basis very high. And just talking to East Europe, these people from low trust societies, whether it be Pakistan or Africa or India, or it doesn't matter, but these people from low trust societies, they see trust as, they don't perceive it as trust. They can't see it as trust. They see it as gullibility. They see it as naivety. They see it as stupidity. They see it as, well, wow, you'd be easy to cheat and exploit. You're so trusting. So they say, I'd never be that trusting because I'd be exploited. But they can't conceive of a society where trust is universally high, and those societies are always rich. Why are those high trust societies always rich? And why are low trust societies always dirt poor? And I've tried to have this conversation with them, and they just shake their head and go that they cannot conceive of being trusting, because that means somebody will exploit you, somebody will cheat you, someone will take advantage of you. But if everybody is trusting, there'd always be exceptions, of course, but if everyone is trusting, then that means your ability to collaborate to do business, if you like, your transaction cost of doing business is much, much lower. Firstly, people can collaborate and agree on things and go off and get together and make money and deliver goods and services, invent new products, invent the cure for cancer. Whereas in a low trust society, no one's prepared to do that, because if you do anything at all, someone else will try and exploit you or will exploit you. And this is their attitude. And they cannot, even, I was talking to a Russian woman who's been here, she came in when she's 19, 20 years old. And her view is that she'd now be about 40, I suppose, but she cannot conceive of high trust. And every Australian she meets, she makes an assessment as, can I cheat and exploit this person? The people are only of value to her on the basis of that. And so we need to understand this too, of the people that were being brought into a high trust society, because at the moment British government and people elsewhere, governments elsewhere, Australia too, are taking the position that these third world people, we don't have to apply the same rules and laws to them or hold them to that account. So if an English person waves the English flag, arrest them, throw the motherfuckers in prison. But if a Palestinian person waves the Palestinian flag, do nothing. If just stop oil, block the roads, help them out with food and water, this sort of thing. So as long as these two standards or multiple layers of law, it's just going to create further problems and breakdowns in society. But more importantly, it's going to result and is resulting in an across-the-board reduction in social trust and turning the West into a low-trust society. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.